My name is Zach Buchanan, and today we are tying the Caps hair wing, pattern developed by Ed Haga and sold at Caps Fly Shop on the banks of the Wolf River. In the vise, we got a Umpqua 001 size 10 dry fly hook, and we're using dark brown 6/0 uni thread. We're going to start our tie-in point about an eye length behind the hook eye. We're just going to wrap that back. Trim our tag on. And then we're going to take touching wraps to kind of clear up the bottom. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to put more thread wraps over it, and fish honestly don't care. Now we're going to stop our thread just behind our tie-in point, and that's where we're going to tie in our tail. We're using Nature Spirit all-purpose whitetail. We're going to take a clump about this big, and we're going to get all the underfur out of it. That's a little bit much, so we're going to thin it out just a little bit. So we got about that much. We're going to put it in a hair stacker. So we're going to measure the length. We want it to be about a hook shank in length. I'm going to transfer that back to here because we're going to tie our hair in front. We're going to clip that. Now I'm going to tilt the hair towards me, and as I take wraps, I got to spin my thread counterclockwise. It'll make the thread jump backwards and capture that. And see, now our hair is going to flare. We don't want that. So as we're going to go next, we're going to pull down some extra, take a few tight wraps, and then we're going to take loose wraps towards the back to create our body. Now, I'm going to give myself a little more thread. We have a tail. I don't want to flare the tail, so I want to keep taking loose wraps. Take loose wraps forward right to our tie-in point. And then we're going to go with the deer hair wing. Now for the wing, we want about double the thickness of hair that we use for the tail. This is how I tie it for the Wolf River or any faster river. If you fish flatter water, say the Driftless or like the Au Sable or the Manistee, you can thin up the tail to make it sit a little lower in the water. So we're going to comb out all the underfur from our hair. That's about how much we'll use. We're going to put it in the stacker. Now, when I take it out of the stacker, I'm going to tie it tips forward. So I'm going to pull it, have the hair tips facing forward. Once again, I want the hair to be about a hook shank in length. I'm going to transfer that forward and spin my thread counterclockwise so it jumps back. And now you can see that my thread pressure wants it to turn. I'm going to use my index finger here to hold it on top, pull it straight down, and I'm going to tie back. I'm going to come in here right along the body. Careful not to cut anything, and just cut that flush. If your tail gets a little messed up, that's perfectly fine. We're going to wrap down on the butts. And then we're going to pull all that hair forward and wrap back to stand that hair. Now what we're going to do is we need to split the hair, and it needs to be about equal. It doesn't have to be perfect. And so we're looking something like that. That's going to be close enough. Now I'm going to take a wrap coming back forward, and then I'm going to come under this front wing, pull it up, and then I'm going to come back through the middle, and I'm going to come on this wing near me, up and around, and I'm going to do that one more time. And if it's not perfect, don't worry. It doesn't have to be. And then I'm going to take one loose wrap and one tight wrap. The purpose of that loose wrap is so you don't flare your wings. Now you can see it's all spread out. These, you can stand them up once we wrap the hackle, they'll stand up. But if you want to if you're fishing during a spinner fall, you can just take your fingers and spread them out like that. Now we're using Ewing hackle, one brown, one grizzly, already pre-sized in size 10. If you can't get your sizing perfectly, I'd recommend going up a size rather than down a size. So you can see we're taking the shiny side, there's webbing. We want to strip out all that stuff about where the webbing starts. So it looks like that. And we're going to clip off the excess, set that one down. Same thing, about where the webbiness starts, right about there. Strip that out. Clip that off. Now what we're going to do is we have these stripped ends, and we're going to match up the hackle to hackle. Now when you tie these in, I want about a half a wrap of bare stem, and that'll help just get a cleaner wrap. So we're going to tie those in, and I like tying these in front. It just helps them lock them down. And trim them off like that. Now we're going to take our hackle pliers, stand these up together. Oop. Now if you want to counter wrap these or however you like to do it, feel free. I just find it easier to wrap them both at the same time. Now that we're going to pull this wing forward, we're going to try to get 2 wraps up in front. Now don't worry if you trap a few hackle, there's enough deer hair in here, it's still going to float. 2 wraps behind, 2 wraps in front. I like to do 1 more wrap behind. Now what I'm going to do is I'm putting this hand on the vise. That way I can brace my hand with my scissors against it and get a nice clean cut. Build up a little thread head. You can see we have some junk up front, but we're going to whip finish and then clear that up. Do that. Same thing. I'm just bracing my hand. And now if you wanted to put head cement on it, this would be the time to do it. You can also put head cement on the body, and for more durability, I generally don't because it is such a quick tie. We wanted to preserve this classic Wisconsin dry fly pattern. I hope it helps. Don't be afraid to make variations for your own purposes. I love fishing gray drake variations. I'll use a gray thread and gray hackle rather than the brown, and go out, fish it, tight lines.